Yeah, April 2009. I was damn.
2009, yeah.
Yeah,
I was 17.
I was in college.
Was I 17? No, I was 16. Yeah. Anyway, keep going.
And I voted for Obama. I was energized. I remember seeing Obama on Leno in like 2004, something like that, being like, "Oh, a black guy, that's cool. Like that's something this country hasn't did." And also he made some talk about how I didn't think it was Iraq. I think it was Afghanistan was a stupid war, and everybody interpreted that as here's our anti-war guy.
Mhm.
And so like I was very happy that Obama won. I was very happy to point at Palin supporters. And obviously, I don't think things would be better if they necessarily won
Oh,
at that moment.
Jesus
But
Christ. Yeah.
but that aside, because they did not.
No, sorry,
Um,
I don't mean to
yeah,
front load this, but like, look, like there is no way to look at the current moment that we're at, and I know we're going to get into this, but like Barack Obama like played a massive role, not only for the disappointment that a lot of people felt, but literally for what we were just talking with Bronco Marshall Teach about bringing Joe Biden,
yeah,
into a place of preeminence.
yeah. And I think I mentioned this, but Obama was on a basketball podcast by Therese Halliburton, the young man and the three, and he's just like, I don't know why people are so don't understand incremental progress and stuff. But bro, remember how you campaigned? It wasn't incremental progress. It was an incremental change. But anyway, this is Obama remarks by the president on the economy at Georgetown University, April 14th, 2009. And I think Professor Steve Keen, who at least we had on TMBS, I think back in the day, pointed to this speech. And this paragraph is a fucking doozy when it comes to the path that was chosen by a young 48-year-old Barack Obama here.
We will assure the continuity of a strong and viable institution that can serve our people and our economy.
The banks.
Of course, there are some who differ with our approach. On the one hand, there are some who argue that the government should stand back and simply let these banks fail, especially since in many cases it was their bad decisions that helped create the crisis in the first place. But whether we like it or not, history has shown repeatedly that when nations do not take early and aggressive action to get credit flowing again, they have crises that last years and years instead of months and months. Years of low growth, years of low job creation, years of low investment, all of which cost these nations far more than a course of bold, upfront action. And although there are a lot of Americans who understandably think that government money would be better spent going directly to families and businesses instead of to banks, and one of my most frequent questions in the letters that I get from constituents is, where's my bailout? And I understand the sentiment. It makes sense intuitively, and morally it makes sense, but the truth is that $1 of capital in a bank can actually result in $8 or $10 of loans to families and businesses. So that's a multiplier effect that can ultimately lead to a faster pace of economic growth. That's why we have to fix the banks.
Before we get to the rest of this, yeah, David, I'm curious your response.
Oh my God. This is such an incredible time capsule. One, to see what politics was like back then, but two, knowing what comes next. What goes on next is one of the most significant transfers of wealth to the 1%. This is literally the seeds as they were being sown for, America was already unequal before this, but for that to become just like the fundamental reality of American life, that there are a few haves and many, 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 many millions of have-nots. Unbelievable. And to sit here, and this is such a perfect encapsulation of Obama too, to say, hey, you might think that it's more moral and actually that it makes intellectual sense to do this, but what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that we protect the institutions that not only are the most well-off, right, like the powerful, the rich, the banks, but the ones who created the fucking crisis in the first place. This is a time capsule. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, and I mean exactly, and the whole thing. I remember like the arguments about is he right about that bank thing, right? Like, is
Mhm.
we see the world that created now, as you said, the massive inequality, but also what kind of investment have we seen? Bernie Sanders mentioned AI and the concern about robotics. That's where that investment. That's where the Silicon Valley bubble came from. Like that stuff has
Yeah.
all been inflated by cheap money that was, instead of giving
And
it to
let's
homeowners to stay in their goddamn homes, it was given to those freaks. Elon Musk got a
yeah.
third of $1 billion for Tesla under this guy.
I mean, I'm just going to say, Matt, like, not only in the sense of like creating the inequality and the conditions, but as you're noting here with Elon Musk, like literally the same forces that end up fueling Donald Trump in this election are the ones he's talking about here. Crazy.
I remember like the doom and gloomers of Obama, that the sort of like the I would say like gonzo, but like conspiracy type things. Like Obama is seeding the seeds for fascism. That's what that policy did. That's
Mhm.
what that policy did. Is all this money, and Silicon Valley Bank just got a bailout a year ago. The same sort of thing, and even less like sort of concern about like, hey, what are we doing with the money here?
Crazy.
And actually, look, you might think this is intuitive, but one of those dollars, he's a fucking bank salesman at that point.
Yeah.
Like that
Yeah.
is a
Yeah.
lobbyist for banks.
Yeah. Oh, the velocity of money. It's just crazy.
Which, like, of course, if we actually know economics, the velocity of money, actually, no, those banks aren't going to
Yeah.
invest until they get a return. Whereas your ass that needs to pay your mortgage, that money is going to be moving pretty goddamn fast.
That's true.
So, and what's funny is
I
like
mean,
to
unless
see
your house is owned by a bank, then it sits in the same thing. But yeah, no, I know what you mean.
exactly. So now Obama's he's got to address both sides and then find it perfectly in the middle. This next part is also interesting.
So that's a multiplier effect that can ultimately lead to a faster pace of economic.
I want to just flash like 1-800 call Citibank, like the number. That just sounds like a pitch there.
That's why we have to fix the banks. Now, on the other hand, there have been some who don't dispute that we need to shore up the banking system, but they suggest that we've been too timid in how we go about it. This is essentially the nationalization argument that some of you may have heard. And the argument says,
Even that,
Could you imagine? Yeah.
some of you may have heard, just the condescension he layers on top of it.
the federal government should have already preemptively stepped in and taken over major financial institutions, the way that the FDIC currently intervenes in smaller banks. And that our failure, my administration's failure to do so, is yet another example of Washington coddling Wall Street. Why aren't you tougher on the banks? So let me be clear. The reason
Love that
we've
phrase.
taken this step has nothing to do with any ideological or political judgment we've made about government involvement in banks. It's certainly not because of any concern we have for the management and shareholders whose actions helped to cause this mess. Rather, it's because we believe that preemptive government takeovers are likely to end up costing taxpayers even more in the end, and because it's more likely to undermine than create confidence. Governments should practice the same principle as doctors. First, do no harm.
Looking back, I would say you may not have succeeded, Barack. I think you may have caused a little bit of harm there with like doing this through quantitative easing and printing money for banks to play with instead of backing up homeowners.
No, but also like not only doing tremendous harm in inequality in this country, in the failure of letting normal people who were so hurt, were so devastated, the American working class, the American middle class, even to talk about things that Dems like to talk about. This was devastating. This was a moment where a lot of people saw their standard of living decrease dramatically, and he played a massive role in creating, crafting, maintaining that system. And then again, fast forwarding to today, you look at the political world and you look at the people who were the biggest beneficiaries of the quantitative easing that you're talking about. It was the hyper speculative, tech industry, which is a malign cancer on American democracy and American society, people who do nothing with money but chase after higher and higher and higher returns for their investors because that money is being driven out of the productive economy and given to guys who are making an Uber for dogs or whatever joke you want to make. That's literally where that money ended up. So to sit here and say with the fucking straight face, like he is in that clip, oh, well, we can't be, investing in the American people or the American worker or the American family or any of those kind of, political speak. And then just knowing what it actually ended up being was just a massive, not bailout, gift, largesse to Elon Musk, to Peter Thiel, to the big social media companies. I mean, and knowing the role that those people have played in American democracy and American society from then on out, they didn't even do it well and create like a clientelist relationship with these people. These people ended up dominating American society. That's crazy. It's crazy. It's so crazy.
Isn't that wild?
Jesus Christ. Thank you for pulling that, Matt. That's fucking insane.
Yeah, so it's not so much of a mystery, I think. Not to mention his role in the 2020 primaries, like
to mention his role in the 2024 election.